The banished child. The sky was heavy with dark clouds when the little alien girl stood at the edge of her village. Her small body shook in the cold wind, but the chill inside her heart was worse. Tonight was not just the night her mother had died. It was the night her people had turned their backs on her. She was only 10 cycles old, barely more than a child. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes wide and shining with tears. She looked at the stone houses of her people, the glowing fires inside, and wished someone, anyone, would call her back. But no one did. The elders had spoken. She is cursed, one said. She carries shadow in her blood, another whispered. If she stays, misfortune will fall on us all. And so they banished her. The girl clutched the torn cloth of her mother's shawl around her shoulders. It smelled faintly of warmth and safety, though both were gone now. Her mother had been her only protector, the one who told her bedtime stories and sang to her when storms howled. Without her, the girl was alone. She looked once more at the village gates. The guards stood still, their eyes cold. She wanted to scream, to beg, but her pride held her tongue. If they wanted her gone, then she would go. The forest stretched before her, endless and dark. Everyone knew the forest was dangerous at night. Beasts with sharp teeth prowled there, and poisonous plants grew under the roots. But the village gave her no choice. Her bare feet touched the rough soil as she stepped into the unknown. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the earth itself wanted her to turn back. But she did not. Hours passed. The sky grew darker and the cold sharper. The little girl hugged herself, trying to stop her teeth from chattering. She found berries on a bush, but when she bit one, it burned her tongue. She spat it out, tears stinging her eyes. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but she could not eat poison. She stumbled through tangled roots, her legs weak. Shadows moved between the trees, and strange cries echoed around her. She thought of her mother's last words, whispered through cracked lips. Trust the light, not the dark. The words gave her a little strength, but not enough to stop the fear from creeping in. She found a hollow under a fallen tree and crawled inside. The ground was damp and insects crawled nearby, but it was shelter. She pulled her mother's shawl tightly around her and tried to rest, but rest would not come. Every sound in the night made her flinch. The snapping of twigs, the hoot of a bird, the growl of something far away. She curled up smaller and smaller, wishing she could disappear. Then came the footsteps. Heavy, slow. Too heavy for a bird, too slow for a deer. The ground trembled with each step. Her breath caught in her throat. Something large was moving through the forest. Its shadow stretched across the trees, long and twisted. She heard the low rumble of its growl, deep like thunder rolling over the hills. Her heart pounded so loud she thought it would give her away. She pressed a hand over her mouth, trying to stay silent. The footsteps grew closer, closer. She peeked out from the hollow. At first she saw only darkness. Then 2 yellow eyes appeared, glowing like fire in the night. They blinked once, then locked on her. Her blood turned cold. The beast stepped forward, and she saw its shape. Taller than 2 men, with fur black as shadows and claws that gleamed like knives. Saliva dripped from its jaws as it sniffed the air. It had found her. The girl scrambled back inside the hollow, but the beast pushed its snout toward her, sniffing. Its hot breath washed over her face. She whimpered, tears streaming down her cheeks. There was nowhere to run. The beast roared, shaking the forest, and struck the hollow with its paw. The wood cracked. The girl screamed and tried to cover her head. She thought this was the end. Her mother was gone. Her people had abandoned her. And now she would be torn apart in the dark. But just as the beast prepared to strike again, a sound split the night. Not the growl of an animal. Not the howl of the wind. It was a roar of thunder, yet the sky did not flash. A blast of fire and light struck the beast, throwing it back. It howled in pain, its yellow eyes wide with rage. The little girl opened her eyes and saw the impossible. Someone was standing between her and the monster. A figure, tall, strange, unlike any she had seen before. He held a weapon in his hands, glowing with light. Smoke curled from its barrel. His eyes were fierce, his stance unshaken. The beast snarled at him, but he did not move. He raised the weapon again, ready to fire. The girl's lips trembled. She had never seen this kind of creature. Not alien, not like her people, not like the beasts. A human. The struggle to survive. The beast's roar echoed through the forest as it stumbled back, its yellow eyes burning with fury. Smoke rose from the wound where the strange man's weapon had struck. The little alien girl pressed herself deeper into the hollow tree, trembling. She wanted to close her eyes to shut the world away, but she couldn't. She was trapped between two dangers, the monster and the human she had never seen before. The human stood tall. His clothes were torn from old battles and dirt covered his face, but his hands were steady. He fired again. The blast of fire and thunder lit up the forest, and the beast screamed as it turned and fled into the shadows. The trees shook as it ran, leaving only silence behind. For a long moment, the girl couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded in her chest, her small body shaking from head to toe. She expected the man to turn toward her next, to finish what the beast had started. After all, her people always spoke of humans as destroyers, creatures who brought only death. But the man lowered his weapon. Slowly, carefully, he crouched down, making himself smaller. He didn't speak at first. He only looked at her, his eyes softer now, his breath steady. The girl gripped her mother's shawl tighter, unsure if she should run or stay. Her throat was dry, her stomach knotted with fear and hunger. The man finally spoke a single word, in a strange accent that still carried meaning. Safe. His voice was rough, like stones rubbing together, yet it carried no anger. The girl blinked at him. She didn't know if she should believe him. Safe? How could she be safe when everything she loved was gone, when her own people had cast her away like trash? The man reached into a small bag at his side. The girl flinched, ready to dart into the forest, but instead of a weapon, he pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it slowly so she could see. Inside was bread, soft, golden, with a smell that made her stomach twist painfully with hunger. He placed it gently on the ground between them, not pushing it toward her, not forcing her to take it. He waited, the girl's eyes fixed on the bread. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her mouth watered, but her fear held her still. What if it was poison? What if it was a trick? The man said nothing. He simply sat back on his heels, his weapon now hanging harmless at his side. The bread sat there, steaming softly in the night air. Minutes passed, though to the girl they felt like hours. At last, her hunger was stronger than her fear. Slowly, she reached out. Her small blue fingers touched the bread, and she pulled it back quickly as if it might burn her. The man did not move. She sniffed it, then tore off the tiniest piece and placed it on her tongue. Warmth filled her mouth. It wasn't poison. It was food, real food. Tears filled her eyes as she ate, chewing slowly, then faster, until she was devouring it with both hands. The man only watched, a faint smile flickering across his tired face. When she finished, crumbs stuck to her lips. She licked them away, clutching the last bite as though someone might take it. For the first time since her mother's death, her stomach felt full. But hunger was not the only enemy. The night was still cold and her body shook from exhaustion. The man noticed. He stood and gestured for her to follow. She froze. Should she? Trust was dangerous. But when she looked around, the forest seemed darker, the beast's growl still echoing in her memory. Alone, she would not last the night. With heavy steps, she followed him. They did not walk far. Soon they reached a small camp hidden among the trees. A fire burned there, its light warm and bright. The girl stopped at the edge of the circle, afraid to step closer. The man sat by the fire and placed another log into the flames. Sparks danced into the night sky. Then he gestured again, his eyes kind but firm. She hesitated, then shuffled forward. The heat washed over her skin, chasing away the chill that had sunk into her bones. She lowered herself onto the ground, clutching her shawl tightly. The man took out a small metal container, filled it with water from a flask, and set it near the fire. Steam soon rose, and he poured it into a cup. He placed it near her just as he had with the bread. She sniffed it carefully. It was plain water, warm and safe. She sipped, then drank deeply as if her body had been waiting for this moment. The man leaned back, his gaze on the flames. He didn't question her, didn't demand her story. He simply sat there, sharing his fire and food with a child who had no one else. The girl stared at him through the smoke. She had been told humans were monsters, but this one had saved her. This one had fed her. This one had kept her alive when even her own people had let her die. And yet in her heart a seed of doubt remained. Why? Why would a human help her? The night stretched on, quiet except for the crackle of fire. The girl's eyelids grew heavy, but she fought to stay awake, afraid that if she slept, everything would vanish. She was afraid that when she opened her eyes, the bread, the water, even the fire would be gone. and she would be alone again. The man must have noticed her struggle. He placed a blanket near her, softer and heavier than her mother's thin shawl. She stared at it, then slowly pulled it around herself. Warmth wrapped her like an embrace she hadn't felt since her mother's arms. At last her eyes closed, but as she drifted into uneasy sleep, the question burned in her mind. Who was this man, and why had he saved her life? The unexpected savior. The first rays of morning light broke through the trees, painting the forest in pale gold. Birds sang, but their voices sounded sharp, almost like warnings. The little alien girl woke with a start, clutching the blanket the man had given her. For one brief, dizzy second, she thought she was still in her mother's arms. But no, her mother was gone. Her people were gone. Only the human was there. He was already awake, crouched near the fire. His weapon rested beside him, but his hands were busy fixing something small and metallic. Sparks hissed softly as he worked, his face calm and focused. The girl sat up, her hair tangled, her eyes wary. She studied him closely. He was taller than anyone she had ever seen, with skin a pale shade that caught the sunlight. His eyes were dark, deep, filled with a quiet strength she didn't understand. Everything about him was strange. She remembered the way her people spoke of humans. They said humans were hunters of worlds, that they brought war, that they destroyed what they touched. But the man before her had not destroyed. He had protected. Her stomach growled softly and she hugged her knees in embarrassment. The man glanced at her, then reached into his bag. He pulled out a small package and placed it near her. Inside was dried meat and fruit, food unlike anything she had known. Again, he didn't force her. He simply offered. The girl hesitated, but hunger won. She picked up a piece of fruit, chewed slowly, and felt sweetness burst across her tongue. She had never tasted anything like it. Good? The man asked, his accent heavy but his meaning clear. The girl froze, unsure how to answer. She nodded once, then whispered, "Yes." Her voice was so small she barely recognized it. The man gave a brief smile, then returned to his work. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the forest. The girl stayed close, but never too close. She didn't trust him yet, not fully. But his steady steps, his calm presence, and his weapon made her feel less exposed. Every sound that once made her jump now seemed less frightening with him there. Still, questions crowded her mind. Why was he here? Where had he come from? Why had he saved her when no one else had? At last she found her courage. Who are you?" she asked softly. The man paused. He looked at her, then touched his chest. "Ethan," he said. The name was strange, sharp in her ears, but he spoke it with weight. She whispered it back, clumsy on her tongue. Then he nodded once, as if satisfied. Then he pointed at her. His brow lifted, asking without words. The girl hugged her shawl tighter. Her name felt heavy. Her people had spat it like poison when they cast her out. She almost stayed silent. But something inside her stirred. Something that wanted to be heard. "Lyra," she whispered. Ethan repeated it softly, almost kindly. Lyra. For the first time since her mother's death, her name didn't sound like a curse, but peace was fragile in the forest. As the sun climbed higher, danger returned. Ethan moved ahead, scanning the ground. Lyra followed, stepping carefully on roots and stones. Suddenly he raised a hand. She froze, something rustled in the bushes. Low growls echoed. Shadows slipped between the trees, not one beast. Many. The pack surrounded them, eyes gleaming in the dim light. Creatures with long limbs and snapping jaws. They moved like smoke, fast and silent. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Ethan lifted his weapon. The air hummed with its power. But even he couldn't fight them all. The first creature lunged. The blast from Ethan's weapon lit the air, throwing it back. Another came from the side, claws slashing. Ethan swung, striking it down, but more leapt from the trees. Lyra stumbled backward, her heart pounding. Memories of her village came rushing back. Faces that turned away, voices that cursed her. She thought she was about to die again, alone in the wild, but then Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. "Run!" The command was sharp, firm, but his eyes were on her, not cold, not cruel. He wasn't abandoning her. He was protecting her still, her legs would not move. Fear rooted her to the ground. She watched as Ethan fought with fire and steel, his weapon flashing, his fists striking. Blood smeared his arm where claws had cut, but he did not stop. At last he pushed through the circle of beasts, reached her, and grabbed her hand. His grip was strong, pulling her forward. Together they ran. Branches tore at their clothes, roots clawed at their feet, but they didn't stop. The snarls of the creatures followed close behind. Lyra's chest burned with every breath, but Ethan never let go of her hand. Finally, they burst into a clearing where sunlight streamed through the trees. The beasts stopped at the edge, their eyes glowing, but they did not cross into the light. They hissed and melted back into the forest. Lyra collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. Ethan dropped beside her, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his face. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence of the clearing was heavy. Then Lyra whispered, "Why?" Her voice shook. "Why save me?" Ethan wiped the blood from his arm and looked at her. His eyes were tired but steady. He pointed to her, then to himself. Slowly he said, "Alone." "Same." Lyra blinked. She understood. He was alone, just like her. Her heart ached. For the first time, she didn't feel cursed. She didn't feel abandoned. She wasn't just a banished child anymore, she was Lyra. And this strange human, this Ethan, was her savior. But deep inside, she knew one truth. If her people discovered she was alive, they would not stop hunting her. And next time, even Ethan's fire might not be enough. A fragile trust. The sun slipped lower in the sky, painting the forest with orange light. Lyra walked behind Ethan, her small steps struggling to keep pace with his long stride. Every few minutes, he glanced back to make sure she was still there. He never said much, but his eyes spoke enough. Stay close, stay alive. Her heart was still racing from the beast attack. The memory of claws and snarls clung to her skin. If Ethan hadn't been there, she would already be dead. Yet the thought of trusting him felt dangerous. Her people's voices echoed in her mind. Humans bring ruin. Humans destroy, and yet, this human had shared fire, food, and his blanket. He had held her hand when she couldn't move. Confusion twisted inside her. Could both be true? Could he be dangerous and kind? As night crept over the forest, Ethan stopped near a rocky hill. A cave opened at its base, hidden behind vines. He pulled them aside and motioned for Lyra to enter. The cave smelled of earth and damp stone, but it was wide enough for shelter. He set his pack down and built a fire near the entrance. Soon warmth filled the space, chasing away the chill of night. Lyra sat near the wall, hugging her shawl. She watched him carefully as he cooked something over the flames, thin strips of meat sizzling on a metal plate. Her stomach growled, but she stayed silent. When it was ready, Ethan placed a portion near her, just like before. He didn't push her. He didn't speak. He simply offered. This time she didn't hesitate. She took it, ate slowly, and felt strength return to her weak body. When she finished, she whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was so quiet that the fire almost swallowed it. But Ethan heard. His head lifted and he gave a small nod. The night was long, but safer inside the cave. Lyra curled under the heavy blanket, watching the fire's glow flicker across the stone. Ethan sat nearby, his weapon resting against the wall. His eyes never fully closed. She thought of asking him why he watched the fire so closely, why he always seemed ready to fight. But fear held her tongue. Instead, she studied him in secret. His face was worn, his skin scarred in places. His hands were rough but steady. He looked tired, like someone who had carried too many battles alone. At last, her curiosity broke through her fear. "You, from where?" she asked softly. Ethan glanced at her, then pointed upward toward the sky. "Far," he said. His voice carried weight, as if that one word held a whole story. "Stars?" she asked, tilting her head. He gave a slow nod. "Stars," her eyes widened. She had heard stories of people from the sky, but she never thought she would meet one. Her people said skywalkers brought fire and war, but Ethan had brought her food, warmth, and safety. Still, she whispered the question that haunted her. "Why, help me." For a long time, Ethan said nothing. The fire cracked softly. Finally, he spoke. "Alone," he said, pointing to himself. Then he pointed at her. Alone, the word echoed in her chest. He was alone, like her. Her throat tightened. She wanted to ask more about his family, about how he came to this world, but her courage faded. Instead, she whispered, "My mother, gone." Her eyes burned and tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. She pulled the shawl around her, burying her face. For a moment, she thought Ethan would ignore her, but then gently he placed something beside her. She peeked through her tears and saw it. A small polished stone, smooth and shining faintly in the firelight. She looked at him, confused. He pointed to the stone, then to her heart. "Strong," he said simply. Lyra clutched the stone in her small hand. Strong. Was she really strong? She didn't feel strong. She felt broken, abandoned. But hearing it from him made her chest warm. For the first time she believed maybe she could survive. Morning came with gray skies and mist. The fire had burned low. Ethan stood at the cave's edge, scanning the trees. Lyra rubbed her eyes, the stone still clutched in her hand. Go, Ethan said, motioning to the forest. Her stomach nodded. Go. Where? He tapped his chest. Search. Ship. Then he spread his arms wide, making the shape of wings. Ship. He was looking for something he lost. A way home. She nodded slowly, though fear stirred inside her. If he found his ship, he might leave. And then she would be alone again. Still, she followed him. The forest grew thicker as they moved on. Mist curled around the trees, muffling sound. Every step felt heavy with silence. Suddenly, Ethan raised a hand. Lyra froze. Through the mist, voices drifted. Not beasts, not strangers. Voices she knew, her people. Her heart jumped. She ducked behind a tree, trembling. Ethan crouched low, his weapon ready. The voices grew clearer. She must not live. One said coldly. The cursed child will bring ruin if she returns. Lyra's blood turned to ice. They were hunting her. Even now they wanted her gone. She pressed her hand over her mouth to stay silent. Tears pricked her eyes. She had dreamed her people might forgive her, might take her back, but now she knew the truth. They wanted her dead. Ethan glanced at her. His eyes were calm, steady, waiting for her choice. Run, hide, or face them. Lyra's heart raced. For the first time she realized she was not just surviving anymore. She was caught between two worlds. One that had cast her away, and one she barely understood, and her next choice could decide everything. Secrets of the past mist hung thick in the air as Lyra pressed her back against the tree. Her heart beat so fast she thought the hunters would hear it. She could see them now, 3 of her people moving through the forest, weapons in their hands, eyes sharp with hate. Search everywhere, one ordered. The cursed child cannot be allowed to live. The words sliced through Lyra like a knife. She wanted to scream, to demand why they hated her so much, but her throat closed. All she could do was hide. Ethan crouched beside her, silent, calm. His weapon rested in his hands, ready. He glanced at her, his expression asking, what now? Her small fingers dug into her shawl. This was her choice. Run, fight, or stay hidden. But how could a child fight her own people? The hunters moved closer. Lyra's breath caught. Just when it seemed they would pass, one stopped. He bent low, studying the ground. Tracks, he said. Small feet. She is near. Lyra's blood turned cold. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He raised his weapon slightly, but Lyra shook her head quickly. No, she couldn't let him hurt them. They were her people. Even if they wanted her gone. Ethan studied her face, then gave the smallest nod. He lowered the weapon. The hunters followed the tracks away from the clearing, their voices fading into the mist. Only when silence returned did Lyra let out the breath she'd been holding. Ethan touched her arm lightly, guiding her forward. They moved deeper into the forest, careful, quiet until the voices were far behind. When they finally stopped to rest, Lyra sank onto a fallen log. Her chest still ached from fear, but another ache grew inside her. The ache of questions left unanswered. She looked at Ethan. He was scanning the trees again, always alert, always watching. She thought of his word from the night before. Alone. He had no one, just like her. She swallowed hard. Why'd they hate me? She whispered. Ethan turned toward her. He didn't understand every word, but the pain in her voice needed no translation. He crouched low, meeting her eyes. Lyra clenched her fists. Mother said, I was born under shadow, they say. Cursed, she shook her head. But why? I never hurt anyone, her voice cracked. The shame of being unwanted, of being feared, pressed down like a weight she could not carry. Ethan's brow furrowed. He looked at her for a long moment, then pointed to her heart. Not curse, he said firmly. Child, Lyra blinked. For a second the world stopped. No one had ever called her that. To her people she was not a child, she was a danger. To Ethan she was simply what she truly was, a child. Her eyes burned and she turned away quickly, hiding her tears. That night they made camp by a stream. The firelight flickered across the water, throwing shadows against the rocks. Lyra sat near the flames, hugging her knees. Ethan reached into his pack and pulled out a small device. Its lights were dim, its edges cracked, but it hummed faintly. He placed it on the ground, adjusting tiny switches with careful hands. Lyra tilted her head. "What is it?" "Beacon," Ethan said. He tapped it. "Signal. Call home." Her eyes widened. So he was truly from the stars. Somewhere far above there was another place, another people waiting for him. "Home," she whispered. The word felt strange on her tongue. Did she even have a home anymore? Ethan gave her a long look, then sighed. He pointed upward. "Ship broken. Signal weak. Need time." Lyra nodded slowly. She didn't understand all his words, but she understood enough. He was stranded here, just like she was stranded without her people. For a long time they sat in silence, listening to the crackle of the fire and the murmur of the stream. Finally, Lyra spoke. "Mother told me, before she died, trust the light, not the dark." Her voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. "But what is light? What is dark? My people say I am shadow. They say I will bring ruin, but I don't feel dark inside." Ethan studied her face. Slowly, he picked up a stick from the fire and held it out. The flame glowed bright and alive. "Light," he said. Then he broke the stick, letting the flame fall into the dirt where it died. Smoke curled into the night. "Dark," he said. He pointed to her heart again. "Choice." Lyra stared at him, her mouth open. Was it that simple? Could she really choose what she would become? Her people had never given her that chance. They had decided for her. But Ethan's words, few and heavy, opened something inside her. She touched the smooth stone he had given her. Strong. Choice. Maybe she wasn't cursed after all. Later that night, she woke to the sound of whispers. Not Ethan's, not Beast's. Whispers carried by the wind, soft and strange. She crept toward the edge of the stream, her shawl wrapped tightly around her. The water rippled, glowing faintly under the moon. For a moment she thought she saw shapes in the reflection, shapes like wings, shadows curling around her face. Her breath caught. The whispers grew louder. "You are not like them. You are born of power." Her hands trembled. She stumbled back, her heart racing. Were the whispers real, or only in her mind? Ethan stirred by the fire. He saw her pale face and stood quickly, scanning the trees. "Danger?" he asked. Lyra shook her head fast, though fear burned in her chest. "No, not danger, shadow." Ethan frowned, not fully understanding. But he stepped closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. His presence steadied her, pulled her back from the fear. For now, the whispers faded. But deep inside, Lyra knew the truth. The shadow her people feared was real, and it lived inside her. The hunt begins. The morning came gray and heavy. Mist clung to the trees, wrapping the forest in silence. Lyra followed close behind Ethan, her small steps quick to keep up. She still held the smooth stone he had given her. It gave her courage, but not enough to chase away the fear that lingered after the whispers by the stream. Her people's voices haunted her. The cursed child must not live. She hugged her shawl tighter. They were hunting her, and sooner or later they would find her. Ethan stopped suddenly, raising a hand. His dark eyes scanned the ground. The soil was damp with fresh tracks, boot prints, deep and sharp. Lyra's breath caught. She knew those patterns. Hunters. Her hunters. Ethan crouched low, touched the tracks, then looked at her. His meaning was clear without words. They are close. Lyra's knees trembled. She wanted to run, but where could she go? The forest was wide, yet not wide enough to hide forever. By midday the mist had lifted and the forest felt too open. Ethan guided her up a rocky slope. From the top she saw them. A line of figures moved below, her people. They carried spears tipped with stone, bows strung with sinew. Their eyes scanned the trees with sharp, merciless focus. Lyra's stomach twisted. She recognized them. The elder's son who once played beside her. The woman who once gave her fruit at the market. Now their faces were hard, cruel, as if she had never been one of them. "They will not stop," she whispered. Ethan's gaze never left the hunters. His jaw tightened. He adjusted his weapon and shook his head. "No stop." He pointed to the slope behind them. "Higher ground. Safer ground." They climbed quickly, but Lyra's feet slipped on loose stone. A rock tumbled down, crashing against the ground below. Every hunter stopped. Their heads snapped upward. "There!" A voice roared. Arrows flew. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her behind a boulder as the shafts clattered against stone. The chase had begun. They ran. Through trees, over roots, across streams. Lyra's lungs burned, but she didn't dare slow down. Behind them, voices shouted, growing closer, "Catch her! Do not let the cursed one escape!" Ethan fired his weapon once, twice. Blasts of light tore through the undergrowth, forcing the hunters to scatter. But there were too many. Lyra stumbled, nearly falling. Ethan caught her, lifted her to her feet, and pushed her forward. His voice was sharp, urgent. "Run!" Tears blurred her vision. She hated this. Hated being chased, hated being called cursed. She wanted to scream that she was not a monster. She was just a child, but the forest did not care. The hunters did not care. They ran until the trees thinned and the land opened into a wide clearing. Sunlight poured down, harsh and bright. There was nowhere left to hide. The hunters burst from the forest behind them, fanning out to block escape. Spears pointed, bows drawn. Lyra froze, her chest heaving. The elder himself stepped forward, his long robe trailing in the grass. His face was carved from stone, his eyes full of cold fire. "You should have died with your mother," he said. His voice was heavy with hate. "You are Shadowborn. You will bring ruin. Today it ends." Lyra shook her head, tears streaming. "I never hurt anyone," she cried. Her voice cracked, weak against their hate. "Why do you hate me?" The elder raised his hand. "Because you are wrong. You are not of the light," he gestured sharply. The hunters moved forward. Ethan stepped in front of her. His body blocked her from their spears, his weapon steady in his hands. He stood like a wall, tall and unyielding. "She is child," he said, his words rough but clear. "Not curse," the hunters sneered. "She is not yours to protect, human." "Step aside." Ethan shook his head. His voice was low, dangerous. "No." The air grew tight, heavy with tension. Every hunter raised their weapon. Lyra clutched the stone in her hand until it dug into her skin. Fear churned inside her, but something else stirred too. A spark. A strange growing warmth in her chest. Her mother's last words echoed, "Trust the light, not the dark." But what if the light was inside her all along? The hunters charged. Spears flew. Ethan fired, blasts of light splitting the air. 2 hunters fell, their weapons shattered. But more came. Lyra screamed as arrows rained down. One grazed Ethan's shoulder, blood spilling. He didn't falter. He fought like fire itself, every strike fierce, every step unbroken. But there were too many. The elder raised his staff, shouting words that echoed like thunder. The hunters closed in. Lyra's body shook. Fear crushed her. Yet deep inside, the spark grew hotter, brighter. Her hands glowed faintly, light seeping through her skin. She gasped. The elder's eyes widened. "No, it cannot be." The light surged. It burst from her in a wave, throwing the hunters back. Spears shattered. Bows snapped. Voices cried out in terror. Ethan shielded his eyes as the clearing blazed with brilliance. When the light faded, the hunters lay scattered across the ground, groaning. None were dead, but none could stand. Lyra stood trembling, her hands glowing faintly. The stone she held was warm, alive, as if it had awakened something deep inside her. The elder crawled to his knees, his face pale with fear. "Shadowborn," he whispered, "but no light, she is light." His words hung heavy in the clearing. Lyra stared at her hands, her chest heaving. She didn't understand what had just happened. But she knew one thing, she was not cursed. She was powerful. Ethan stepped beside her, his voice calm and steady. "Strong," he said. Lyra met his eyes. For the first time she believed it. But power came with danger. And now her people feared her more than ever. The hunt was not over. It had only begun. The choice of destiny. The clearing lay silent after the blast of light. Hunters sprawled across the ground, groaning, their weapons broken like brittle twigs. Smoke rose from shattered spears. Birds had fled, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Lyra stood trembling in the center, her small hand still glowing faintly. She stared at them in shock. That power, it came from me. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her heartbeat a storm. She wanted to deny it, to believe it was a dream, but the evidence lay all around her. She had thrown back an entire hunting party with nothing but the force inside her. The elder, once so proud and unshaken, now crawled to his knees. His robe was torn, his staff cracked. His eyes locked on her, wide with terror. "Shadow child," he whispered. Then with trembling lips, "No, not shadow. Light." The other hunters looked at her too, not with anger this time, but with fear. Fear sharper than spears. Lyra clutched her shawl, her small body shaking. She had never wanted power. She only wanted to be loved, to belong. And now, her own people looked at her as if she were something beyond them, something dangerous. Ethan stepped forward, his weapon lowered, his face calm. He didn't look at her like the others did. His gaze carried no fear, only quiet certainty. Strong, he said softly, repeating the word he had given her before. The hunters pulled back, whispering among themselves. None dared rise against her now. The elder's voice shook as he spoke. "You are not one of us," he said. "Your mother's blood was tainted. You carry a gift that should not exist. That is why we feared you. That is why we cast you out." Lyra's tears burned hot. "A gift?" she cried. "You call it a gift, but you hated me for it. You left me to die!" Her voice echoed through the clearing, sharper than any blade. For once the hunters lowered their eyes. None could deny the truth. The elder's lips pressed thin. "Yes, we feared you. But now—" He hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "Now we will fear you more." He bowed his head low, trembling. "Leave us. Do not return. Your power is not welcome among us." The words struck like arrows. Even after all she had shown, all she had survived, they still wanted her gone. Ethan stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him through her tears. His presence was solid, unshaken, a reminder that she was not alone. Her people would never accept her. But maybe she didn't need them. She thought of her mother's last words. Trust the light, not the dark. For so long she believed that meant she had to be like her people, to chase their approval, to belong in their light. But now she saw the truth. The light was not theirs. The light was hers, her choice, her destiny. Lyra wiped her tears, straightened her back, and faced the hunters. Her voice was small but firm. "I am not cursed," she said. "I am not Shadow. I am Lyra, and I will not hide any more." The hunters murmured, uneasy. None dared lift their weapons. She turned away from them, her decision burning clear in her heart. Ethan gave a single nod. He did not tell her what to do. He did not command. He simply stood beside her, ready to walk whatever path she chose, and she chose to leave the past behind. They walked from the clearing, the forest opening ahead like a new road. The sun broke through the clouds, painting the ground in golden light. For the first time, Lyra didn't feel like a lost child. She felt free, yet freedom came with weight. Her power was real, alive inside her. It frightened her. It thrilled her. She did not know how to control it, but she knew it could change everything. As they walked, she looked at Ethan. "What now?" she asked softly. Ethan glanced upward, then at the small beacon in his hand. Its lights flickered weakly. "Find ship," he said. "Find way." She nodded, but doubt tugged at her heart. If Ethan repaired his ship, he could leave this world. He could go home, and she would be alone again. But then Ethan said something that made her stop. "Not alone," he told her. His voice was steady, certain. Same." Lyra's throat tightened. She clutched the smooth stone he had given her, feeling its warmth in her palm. She wasn't cursed. She wasn't abandoned. She wasn't alone. Night fell as they reached another ridge. From the top, Lyra looked out. Beyond the forest stretched mountains, rivers, valleys glowing under the moon. A whole world lay before her. For so long, her life had been nothing but pain and fear. But now, standing beside a human who had chosen to protect her, she saw possibility. Her mother's words came back once more, but now they felt different. Trust the light. And for the first time, she realized she was the light. The shadow her people feared was not her curse. It was her strength. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. His eyes looked tired but proud. "Journey," he said. She nodded. Her journey was only beginning. Somewhere beyond the stars was his home. Somewhere in this world was her destiny. Together they would walk the path, not as hunter and hunted, not as cursed and savior, but as two souls who refused to be broken. Lyra turned her face to the wind, the glow of power still faint in her hands. She did not know what waited ahead, but she knew this. She would never be silent again. She would never bow to fear again, and she would never, ever let the world decide who she was. She was Lyra, the child who survived, the child of light.